look to the night sky, you envision the endless prospects of unfathomable beauty and the mystifying forms of life that could exist. Are you one who glances up to the stars in fear, frightened of the unknown possibilities? Or maybe you're a cynic, a non-believer of otherworldly existence itself. What would it take to change your mind? Could you be swayed by gathered evidence and witness accounts, or must the truth hunt you down and forcibly turn you towards the light? Our story begins in 2009 with Martin, a 24-year-old living in Southern California. Martin was newly sober and working for a moving company. The guys he worked with were all in a similar situation, just getting their lives back in order. One day, while on a well-earned break, they were trading stories and somehow got onto the subject of UFOs. Martin stayed silent at first, while two men from the group relayed their stories of UFO sightings. He sat barely paying attention and fought the urge to groan and roll his eyes. He didn't believe anything about extraterrestrial beings, and the tall tales from some ex-junkies wasn't about to change his mind. Martin then cut off one of the storytellers and said, "You all watch too many movies. There's nothing out there. You guys are so gullible." The man he had interrupted, who was quite a bit older, looked Martin in the eyes and calmly stated, "Just because you haven't seen anything doesn't mean there isn't something out there, kid." Martin shook his head, stood up, and went back to work. He refused to open his mind to that possibility. Over the next few years, Martin struggled, but succeeded in bettering his circumstances and staying sober. He moved to San Diego, and by 2013 was working as a subcontractor, designing and building custom cabinetry. That summer, he had been working multiple jobs in El Centro, over a 100-mile drive east from his home. Fortunately, his girlfriend at the time lived there, so rather than stay in a hotel for weeks, he was able to room with her. They both enjoyed the extended time together, as their distant living situations did not allow for much of it. So when the day came for Martin to go back to San Diego, he procrastinated the farewell as long as he could, leading to him departing around 3 a.m. After a long and emotionally draining goodbye, Martin climbed into his Toyota Supra and hit the road. He merged onto the 8 freeway and headed west. The night sky was calm and clear, giving him a shocking and uplifting view of the endless amount of stars scattered above. As he left the glow of the city lights, more stars emerged from the darkness. An absence of the moon allowed for the incandescent bodies to beam down uncontested even by the shine of Martin's headlights. He was happy there wasn't a single other car on the road, so he was free to drive as fast as he wanted. Loud trance music blasted from the speakers, out to the emptiness of the desert, while he took long, slow drags from a cigarette. Barreling down the vacant freeway through the pitch black, he thought about how he would miss his girlfriend, but was looking forward to sleeping in his own bed. He had just lit another cigarette when he realized he was getting close to halfway through the drive. He would be out of the desert in a short time at this speed. Martin looked back up to the sky to see one of the stars ahead of him seemed to be growing in size. He started comparing the neighboring stars and saw 2 others showing the same effect. Unsure of what he was observing, he strained to focus his eyes on the expanding lights. A faint chill spread across him when it registered that they were not stars, were in a triangular pattern, and now appeared to be moving directly towards him. The bright white light then shifted to an almost fluorescent blue, while advancing in perfect unison, making him think they could be satellites or planes. But the glow from the 3 lights was too intense for the sources to be satellites, and were too close to each other to be planes. He then unknowingly let off the gas pedal slightly, when the lights all of a sudden stopped ahead of him, far above the freeway, and now looked to be spreading apart. Another wave of cold washed over him when he noticed the stars between the 3 cobalt lights were swiftly disappearing. Just then it hit Martin. Something was rapidly descending ahead of him. As the massive size of the mysterious craft became more discernible to Martin, the rest of the world fell away. The falling light source was all that occupied his mind. The gleaming trio of blue now stretched far into the desert on both sides of the freeway. Martin stared into their center in search of some kind of recognizable shapes, but could only see darkness. Just then, a 4th white light appeared where he was focusing. A smaller size than the other 3 lights, it seemed to be lowering out from between them. Martin watched in baffled amazement as the 1 white light expanded into 3 and flew off towards the coast with such speed it left a slowly dissipating trail of bright, colorless light. He looked back to the larger blue triangle to witness it dissipate and vanish. A few seconds of stunned shock held Martin still until he remembered he was driving on the freeway. He came back to reality in a panic, expecting to crash at any second. The sense of alarm was then replaced with embarrassment when it became apparent he was simply idling down the 6-lane expressway. As eerie as it was, he was lucky no cars had come up behind him during his mental daze. Feeling unnerved and ashamed that he would let something as ambiguous as lights in the night sky distract him to that degree, he scolded himself for momentarily giving in to the thought of some kind of celestial event occurring in front of him. "You're tired and seeing things. Get your shit together, man." While slowly bringing the vehicle back up to speed, he stretched to the best of his current ability and gave himself a slap in the face to wake himself up a bit. He put the cigarette that was in his hand into the ashtray and lit another. Once again barreling down the freeway, he shook his head and chuckled at the thought of him seeing a UFO. The memory of him scolding his old coworkers for entertaining the idea crept into his mind. Martin turned his trance music up even louder and forced his focus back onto the journey. The next 20 to 30 minutes went by surprisingly fast, but getting closer to home, Martin started to get anxious and lit another cigarette. He would no longer be ashing out of the window. Out of respect for the Pine Valley wilderness he was now passing through, as he pulled open the built-in ashtray, he glanced into the distance, where he could see a grouping of white lights, a mile or so up the expressway. He thought someone was parked facing him or even driving the wrong way on the freeway, until the lights swiftly lifted from the ground, showing its distinct triangle shape. This time he felt the chill down to his bones as the biting sting circulated through him. A cluster of white glow almost instantaneously dashed to the space just above Martin's Toyota. Whether it was real or not, he wasn't going to slow down now. All he could see of the triangle was one of the lights peeking out from maybe 6 feet above as it kept pace with him. Martin felt his heart start to pound in his chest, and his hands began to fill with sweat. The trance music still blaring out the window, piercing into the silence. Pushed down on the accelerator, but it did not shift from its locked target. He swerved across 2 lanes, but still the luminous configuration remained in its taunting position. Martin was beginning to lose command of himself and fall into a panic when control of the vehicle was taken from him. Every light in the car began to flash spastically, and the music was replaced with indecipherable, garbled sounds. Martin slammed on the brake, but nothing happened. Tried to turn the steering wheel, but it was frozen in place. When everything failed, he gripped the wheel as tight as he could. It began to scream as terror and shock had taken charge. Suddenly, the car returned to its normal function, and Martin saw the lights were gone. He knew he should pull over and give himself time to recoup from whatever just happened, but was afraid if he did, something else more terrifying could occur. He put every bit of energy he had left into focusing on the road and getting home. The last portion of Martin's drive felt like it took hours. Every twinkling star and presumed moving light sent muscle spasms down his back, while he pondered his beliefs and way of perceiving others. He was so quick to judge his ex-coworkers, and now knew he would be judged the same way if he brought this up to the people in his life. He was met with a small amount of comfort once he returned to the warming embrace of the city lights. But he was still in a state of shock when he finally got back to his place. Martin to this day hates driving by himself at night, no matter where it is. That experience forever changed his view on what could be out there amongst the stars, and not in a good way. He now believes, regardless of if it's extraterrestrial or not, whatever is stalking the skies could not feasibly have virtuous intentions. What were the inexplicable lucent objects that Martin witnessed on Interstate 8 that clear summer night? It could have been the late hour, the unusual brightness of the stars, and his emotional state playing tricks with his mind. But Martin was an experienced contractor and used to doing detailed work for long hours with very little sleep. There might have been experimental military aircrafts running some kind of secret aerial drill, but the smaller craft moved with such impossible speed, and the larger structure appeared to be more massive than anything he had seen fly before. It's also conceivable that Martin witnessed an extraterrestrial flagship dispatching a smaller aerial vessel to later hunt him down and terrifyingly harass him along the highway. If we are to postulate that life from other worlds is coming to visit us, we must ask what their possible motivation could be for spying on our planet. Are we prepared for the answer? Examining the area along the Southern California and Mexico border, we find an abundance of mysterious sightings and strange activity. The city of San Diego and the surrounding area has been noted as the UFO hub of not only California, but the United States itself. The skies of the region have been a hotbed of alien encounters for many years now, with a number of documented accounts by unsuspecting citizens and branches of the military. In 1987, an off-duty police officer for the city of Calexico was visiting two workers in El Centro. They were closing out the night with a chat at their vehicles before parting ways. The visiting officer noticed a peculiar light in the sky to the south. On further inspection, it was a ball-shaped object with a reddish-white circular light orbiting it. He pulled out his binoculars from his car and pointed it out to his friends. The officers all noted how there was no sound emanating from the mysterious structure. They watched in amazement as the round enigma jolted around the sky in frantic and paradoxical patterns. The trio turned away for just a moment, but when they returned their gaze to the stars, the craft had vanished. The next day, while on an assignment dealing with Mexican federal customs officials, one of them said in Spanish, "Watch out for those UFOs." The Calexico officer smiled. Then he told the Mexican officials about his encounter from the night before. The officials' eyes stretched and their mouths dropped. and one of the Mexican men relayed his story of camping in the mountains of Baja California with his family. One night, they saw a large round figure up above them with a round and white light swirling around its edge. The family was already terrified, but were sent into hysterics when the strange aircraft buzzed their heads without a sound. The man had been telling his friends and coworkers for months without anyone believing him, until that day, when a California police officer changed their world. San Diego Emergency Services and other government authorities were at a loss in 2009 when they were flooded with calls of UFO activity. There were multiple reports of a sizable metal object falling from the sky near Pine Valley Bridge, while other callers claimed to see something large on fire plunging from above. Afterwards, a thorough investigation and search was put into action, but nothing was ever discovered, other than the curious fact that no planes had been reported missing during the time. In 2016, the local recorded strange lights over Ocotillo Wells. The witness was on a midnight stroll, when in the distance they saw two bright orange lights gleaming extremely close together. As they began taking video of the flickering lights, two more emerged to the right, just over the last two. One set disappeared without notice while the other pair slowly dissipated, one after the other. The observer stated that before and after the event, military helicopters were seen patrolling the area in what looked to be a covert operation, as no lights were being used by the helos. This would occur two more times, but the person wasn't able to capture the military presence either time. The appearance of the helicopters before the UFOs adds to the mystery of this account in an odd way. Was it simply a mission or drill being executed by the government, and they were there to check the after effects and make sure no evidence was left behind? Or could they somehow be able to detect the aerial spectacles before they show themselves? Is there a relation between the two that we're missing altogether? In 2017, a fleet of 7 to 8 orange UFOs flew directly over the border control post in Tijuana, Mexico. The event was witnessed by hundreds of people, including Customs and Border Protection officers. One of the witnesses who recorded some of the encounter said the glowing shapes were shifting dramatically in the sky when 4 of the lights formed a perfect rectangular shape, while one dimmed into nothingness. On a clip that was recorded from the Mexico side, you can see the orange phosphorescence dazzling the crowd into an uneasy silence. Some argue the lights were simply satellites or earthly aircrafts flying in a strange formation, but their pattern and speed of flight would be absolutely unachievable by our current standards. No statements claiming the ownership of the crafts has been released by either the US or Mexico, giving the impression there is something to hide, or they truly have no inclination of who or what they are. Since the United States government's release of 1,500 pages of UFO-related research and over 100 unexplainable recorded UFO reports witnessed by military and government employees, we're inclined to believe that, like the rest of us, they're scrambling to see in the dark. In 2019, radar footage was recorded showing a swarm of UFOs near a Navy ship off the coast of San Diego. In the clip, you can see a radar screen with 9 objects moving around the ship, and can hear a technician remark on how fast they're moving. The UFOs moved around the ship in no particular pattern, and then disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. Possibly the most famous of encounters happened in 2004, when Commander David Fravor, an 18-year Navy pilot, was on a routine training mission off the coast of San Diego. His unit was redirected to investigate unidentified objects moving from 80,000 to 20,000 feet, and then disappearing without a trace. After flying 60 miles, the seasoned pilot was met by a tic-tac-shaped structure, 40 feet in length. The object was without wings or signs of propulsion. It simply hovered over the water. The pattern it created on the water's surface was unlike anything the commander had ever seen. As soon as he moved to get closer, the anomaly impossibly maneuvered away and vanished into the distance faster than anything he had ever seen. Fravor is positive that what he saw was not from this world. He backs up his story with the fact that he had been flying for 18 years and seen just about everything we have come up with when it comes to flight. He maintains that the craft he saw that day did not obey our understanding of physics. These incidents, being only a small fraction of the staggering amount of cases involving unexplained phenomena, leave us to wonder how one could deny something is happening above us in the dark blue. How could anyone oppose the notion that there are beings and life forms yet to be discovered? The believers analyze the details and facts of these experiences in hopes of finding a purpose to the encounters, but with frustratingly confounding evidence and an infinite possibility of the visitors' objectives, we can merely speculate their origins and intentions. Would we even be able to comprehend the thought process and conduct of these beings? Or are we humanizing the actions of an entity of which we have no reference or basis to even begin to fathom? The abounding questions boggle and terrify those who are willing to contemplate. What is out there, and will we survive discovery of the truth?
Subscribe to Black Letters for a new horror story every 13 days.